A scientist did a study that I think we're going to find very interesting. He took Japanese fish, put them inside of a fish tank, and then infected the water in there with BPA. BPA is something that kind of comes from plastic, and you've probably seen BPA before, like BPA free on some plastic water bottles or anything, right? He put a hyper concentrated amount of BPA in this tank with these fish for 7 days. And then he replaced the water and put in extremely filtered water, clean water after that. So they were exposed to BPA, a really high level of BPA for 7 days. What do you think happened to the fish? Not much. Nothing significant happened. And then the fish had babies. And this group of fish that were contaminated with BPA for 7 days, they had 50% less babies than a control group. And then when they tested those fish, those babies that grew up, 50% of those were infertile. And the next generation after that, almost entirely infertile. They stopped the study around then, but they genuinely could have made this group of fish extinct with a 7-day exposure to BPA. And they actually did, the same scientists did actually a extremely similar study, but they did it now with something called EE2, a chemical, literally the letters EE2. This is a chemical that comes from, you know, like women take birth control. So you've probably seen this before, like it's like a pill, a contraceptive that women take daily. Like a lot of women take it so that they can't get pregnant and for other health reasons. A lot of women take, it's called oral contraceptives, and it's like, you know, hormonal birth control. And a lot of women take that every single day. And when they pee, like in the toilet, and it goes through the water system, you can't actually filter out for hormones like that. The scale of what we're talking about here is too big for us to actually comprehend at this point. But I'm just going to say this again. Women who take hormonal birth control, which totally changes their hormones, which pretty much chemically castrates them and destroys their testosterone, that goes into the water system when they pee, every time they pee. And our water filtration systems don't actually take that out because it's a hormone, it's an extremely small molecule. And so the scientists did a very similar study from the previous one. This time they used EE2, the thing that comes from oral contraceptives, but they put in a moderate level which is actually less than what's been found in our water. And they put it in for 7 days, then they cleaned out the water, and then they just observed what would happen to the fish. It was about the same results. Almost entirely infertile in 3 generations. You know, 20% of us are infertile right now. We're probably like the first real generation of of what happened here. Mark my words, our children will be 50% infertile, which means either my children or your children will not be able to have children. And this seems, you know, quite distant and insignificant. But there's something closer to our hearts, and it's testosterone. In 1940s, it was the first study on like men's testosterone, right? So before that, we didn't actually have like the testing or whatever it was. So 1940s is the first real blood test for testosterone. They had more than double our rates today. Easily over 1,000 nanograms per deciliter. And of course, there's other metrics to look for: free testosterone, SHBG. But just by a rough metric, they had about double. The average young man today, roughly 20 years old, guess what our numbers are? 409 to 558 nanograms. So about 500. That's what our numbers were. Our great-grandfather's testosterone was above 1,000. Ours are about 500. And it gets even more extreme than this because guess what? our great grandfather's testosterone levels that we look up to, that we think like we want to get there, theirs was actually low. Because at that same time was the first reportings of problems of low testosterone, libido problems, lack of motivation, anxiety, depression, and erectile dysfunction. All of these problems literally shot up around the 1950s, and this is when they were finally being reported. And extra proof of this, which is so interesting, thousands of years ago, just recently, there's a certain job word for this, paleontologist or whatever it is, like, like people go and they go find bones of like cavemen and they like excavate them and they research them and stuff, right? They've found that the bones of men thousands of years ago were significantly different than they are today. Like our skull shape was genuinely like, it looked like very similar to like, I've not watched the movie, but Thanos of the Avengers or whatever movie he's in, like this ultra masculine, like thick looking bony face, like this big looking face. That's what human male skulls used to look like thousands of years ago. They used to look so much more bony, and probably what a lot of researchers online are saying is because of higher levels of testosterone. And this is literally called the feminization of bone structure. Our bones are literally looking more feminized over thousands of years. And of course, there's other reasons to this. We eat softer foods and everything, but it seems to be the case that testosterone and hormones would play a huge role to this. Now, you remember the modern levels I spoke to you about 500 nanograms per deciliter is about what's average and normal these days, right? That's what most guys are at. Roughly around 500, and there's hope, because there is the hope, right? This video just seems like fear-mongering right now, but I want to empower you slightly and give you some positivity, because the average is about 500, but that is literally the average. Think about the modern man. He's included in this like average, right? So that's the guy who doesn't get sunlight. That's the guy who doesn't even drink enough water, who doesn't eat high-fat food because from an early age, most likely because of his parents' ignorance, and also his fat doctor's ignorance. He's been eating low-fat diet with higher sugar. He's been told that cholesterol is bad for him, even though testosterone's made from cholesterol. He's been told to keep his fat intake low. He's been told he works a job where there's no sunlight, there's no competition. He's been told to whittle his masculine energy, his sexuality. Don't look at a woman like this. Don't treat women like this. So there is potential for us. We should probably be closer to 1,000, right? Even 1,000 is when like the first problems did come, but we should probably aim closer to about 1,000 nanograms per deciliter, and the equivalent of that, of like a good, like sort of upper limit of free testosterone and everything. And if you've seen this online on YouTube, you probably have seen like a bunch of testosterone videos, and this is where it gets interesting, because everyone online focuses on ways to increase testosterone, don't they? You hear this with supplements, testosterone replacement therapy, even full-blown steroids. This is what people are talking about online. Wrong. I think we should be spending more than 90% of our time figuring out what is destroying our testosterone and trying to save ourselves from that. Because you can take the supplements and it's nice. Yeah, they'll probably do something. You can, like, research all these weird extra testosterone exercise protocols. Okay, so, Dr. Huberman said if we do 10 times 10 squats, that might give us, you can do all these things, and that is nice, but there's a huge reason why your testosterone is absolutely messed up in the first place. And any of these little increases you can do, it's like trying to run faster and looking for, a better shoe to run in when there's literally, a fucking goblin pulling you back. Let's push the goblin off first. Why are we trying to run faster when there's little creatures literally pulling us back? We've got a weighted ball on our leg, and we're like, should I run with my hands open like this or like this? Oh yes.